consciousness. What is consciousness? I mean, it's this, but what is this? When reading a book, I picture these thoughts in my mind, seeing what I'm reading, or if I draw a picture, I'm creating this new thing out of nothing. Even just writing a script, I'm seeing something no one else can through my mind and making it a reality. Is this consciousness? You probably saw my eyes darting from one side to the other in the last clip there. That was me reading the script, as I didn't have it memorized. Now, is your capability of doing that consciousness? Or perhaps you realize that the structure of this video is very similar to Michael from Vsauce. Of course, not as refined, but nonetheless, you're able to see the similarities there. Is your capability of that consciousness? This debate has been going around forever. Even before the term was coined, it was simply known as being. Plato once described it as simply power, but if a meteor landed into the earth, that would be simply power, wouldn't it? And we can all agree that that meteor definitely didn't have consciousness. So what did Plato mean when he said that? Well, the meteor had no reason to hit Earth, just how the universe is neither good nor evil. It just is. It neither was aware of its actions, nor did it set them in motion. So, are these the two requirements for this elusive concept known as consciousness? Before I answer that, though, what do you think of this? That is a worm, but what is this worm doing? Exactly, it's moving, or more precisely, migrating. Typically, it's too dry for worms to move on land, and it's too slow to move through tunnels underground. So when it rains, that is when worms decide to migrate. Now, this is a deliberate and calculated choice. So, are worms conscious? No, it's not. At the same time, though, it was aware of its actions and it did deliberately set them forward. Now, of course, you might say it was automatic. The worm didn't really know what it was doing because it was programmed into it. This is a program. Not a very complex one. I wrote it to do some very simple tasks. But what if I added one line of code that analyzes what you said and stores it in a semi-permanent memory? Well, now it's Facebook. But what if I added 10 lines of code every second, each analyzing, computing, and storing based on data that you give it? After a year, I now have well over 300 million lines of complex, unique code. Can it now have consciousness? The answer is still almost always no. But why now? The reason, excluding spiritually, of course, is it hasn't experienced anything. This is a baby. And now it's not really a baby, of course, but I don't have a baby and I don't have a doll, so you have to use your imagination. But is a baby conscious? Is Schrodinger's cat alive or dead? The answer is maybe. Now, babies exhibit both the traits that we established earlier, that being that they know what actions they are doing and they intentionally set them in motion. And unlike a computer program, they are constantly taking inputs from their own functions and not those inputted around them. But what is the difference then between them and a worm, as they do the exact same thing? Or, in other words, where is the line? I willingly played that. I was not programmed to do so, nor was I forced to do so. You, of course, could make the argument that I am forced to do so, as the program or brain that I was born with, and all the inputs I've experienced is what caused me to do that, and they are all rigged to do those things because of the way they were born and the inputs they received, and so on, along with the duality of time. This argument, though, is depressing, so I'm going to skip over it for now. So now that we have our requirements, we can define consciousness. Consciousness is an entity that is aware of their actions and intentionally sets them forward, willingly sets them forward based not on what they are programmed to do or have to do, and is capable of experiencing and processing the world. So, are cats just as conscious as humans then? Cats are definitely conscious, just not as conscious as us. So, is consciousness a scale then? Yes, it is. Even humans haven't reached full consciousness, or I should say, peak consciousness. Many are susceptible to subliminal messaging or even can't process information fully for themselves. Many people vote based on parties for these, or they vote who their party tells them they think is right. And that can't be fully conscious, can it? Even removing that, are we conscious when we sleep? The most common model of sleep we use breaks it into 5 stages, 1 through 4 describing how deep of sleep we're in or how our body is adjusting to it, with stage 5, known as the REM sleep stage, being the unique one. Dreams. Almost everyone has them, and yet at the same time, almost no one remembers them. So, what are they, and what do they truly mean? Unconsciousness. I've mentioned consciousness many times already throughout this video, but I only just brought up unconsciousness. So, what is it? Is it living beings that aren't conscious, or is it the functions within conscious beings that aren't? To make my life easier, we're going to be using the latter definition. The Freudian slip, is a common phrase used to describe when someone replaces a word with a different word, similar to what I just did. This is important because it is believed that our unconscious mind is what causes this, where our unconscious mind has those things that have been programmed into us, such as our desire to eat, sleep, have sex, or similar, when of course we're not consciously thinking about them. It seeps into what we are consciously saying and gives a tease of what our body truly wants. This, of course, could also just be something we recently heard or were thinking about, or just a jumbling of words. All of this is to demonstrate that what we know about our unconscious mind turns out to be quite little, and on top of that, not always the most accurate. So when we go to sleep, is it our unconscious mind trying to tell us something directly or indirectly, or is it just our brain trying to comprehend other factors? Either way, we do have those dreams in which we realize we're dreaming. And in these moments, do we gain consciousness? And before these moments, did we not have it? As I mentioned earlier, consciousness is a scale. So in regards to all these questions, it just depends where you land. For example, if you can lucid dream, you're almost just as conscious as when you are awake, as you have full autonomy over what's going on within your imagination, very similar to daydreaming, for example. Interestingly, in our sleep, we do all these actions while we dream, but we never actually physically move. I can move my hand up and down and be consciously aware of it, but even if I lost my ability to do so, it wouldn't change my conscious awareness of when I try to do so, as I still know exactly what's going on and what I'm incapable of doing. Parasomnia is the condition where one doesn't have that inability to move while they're dreaming, which causes them to sleepwalk or do actions akin to what they're imagining within their sleep. On the flip side, sleep paralysis is where one wakes up, but they retain that inability to move. The key takeaway from both of these is that the ability to move of the body has no effect on the conscious aspect. So, what does all of this mean? Well, unfortunately, consciousness is a very large, complex, and abstract subject that is impossible to go over in a 10-minute video, especially one by me. But the hope is that you have gained a new appreciation for consciousness and have even more questions surrounding it. Does someone with hemispatial neglect, or where they don't comprehend an inability of awareness on one side of their brain, have less consciousness due to that? Or what about someone who's lived in the same room their whole life? Just how I borrowed this style of video from Vsauce, I apologize, I know it's been very painful to sit through, is anything truly original? Is there true free will, or will we forever be held back by our programming? No matter what the answer is, I think it's pretty cool that we're conscious enough to be able to ask it.